any question, he can. If anybody has any question for Dr. Suhail, he can start right now. جزاكم الله خير.
May I have a question? We have been talking so much about Quran being in the past to our lives now and into future. The compilation of the Quran and how they were, obviously it's not a chronological order, and perhaps it obviously did not need to be in a chronological order. But what can we derive from Quran, the way it has carried a message of guidance over a period of 23 years? I could not possibly dare to say haphazard, but obviously spread apart in essence and in space, and certainly in time. What are we to make of this? Nothing, and say this is how it was. Don't question them, and that's something that has been resonating in my mind for, of course, many years.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Suhail.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Did you hear the question from Brother Jalal?
Actually, only at the last part.
Okay, Brother Jalal, can you repeat the question for Dr. Suhail?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Good. Yes, sir. I was posing this question that has been resonating in my mind for many years as to this book of Allah that is supposed to guide humanity forever, and in the way that it has descended upon the Prophet in the first place and humanity at large later. The way it has been arranged in terms of content, as people of 21st century or 20th century, that we have gone to college. Of course, I don't know if college could be a comparison with the teachings of Quran. Yet a sense of order, starting either from the big to small, or vice versa, small to big, or in some content, some format of order. And of course, the present compilation of Quran is in order by itself in the way it is. Yet it, because of how I speak for myself, have been educated in the manner that books have a introduction, and then a content, and then a conclusion. Books of teachings, whether that's philosophy or engineering or language. Yet this book is not like them and not meant to be like them. Despite all of that, the manner, the order of the Quran gives you questions about the time, how in time it started in span of 23 years, and some in different geography and importance in time. Is that a source of confusion? Should it be a source of confusion? Not a source of confusion? Certainly a source of question. And is it permissible to have questions about that in terms of critical thinking? So those are the things that I thought I'd just bring forth for your insightful discussion.
بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. The Quran is different than the textbook. The textbook, first of all, it's usually about a particular field, and it is arranged in by subjects or themes, so that when you want to read one particular chapter or prepare for a test or whatever, you go to that chapter and read it. The Quran has a very different purpose. Quran is a book of guidance. It is meant that wherever you read, you're going to get that guidance, some of the guidance. So it was not, I believe, because we can never tell for sure the wisdom of Allah, but the reason it was not arranged by chronological order or by themes because of this, because it was meant to be a book of guidance. So as you read from start to finish, you are always reminded of Tawheed, reminded of the Day of Judgment, reminded of Akhlaq, etc. It's not like one chapter that you read it and then you go and read the next chapter. Like one chapter about Tawheed or Iman, and then the one chapter about Qiyamah, and then another chapter about Akhlaq. No, it was not meant to be like this. It was meant that believers would be reading Quran regularly, or reciting, and then from start to finish, you are reminded in a different ways, in very eloquent and effective ways, about the fundamental principles of the Islam, the teaching, the faith, etc. So that's the reason, and it's doing it very effectively. I believe this would not have happened if Quran was arranged in chronological order or if it was arranged by themes. The purpose will not be achieved. It is meant that any surah you open, anytime you're reading, let's say someone who reads one juz'ah every day you will be reminded of the fundamental principles of the teachings of Islam in different ways. So that's why the Quran was done that was organized that way, and the organization was wahi. The Prophet ﷺ had the revelation to tell him where to place every surah. So that's what he was telling the writers of the Wahi. Place these verses after that particular passage, place these verses in that particular passage, etc. So the order was revealed. Wasn't random. Now we still have the benefit of the fact that Quran was revealed into real situations and was treating and dealing with that situation. So, and that's why one critical factor or idea that is needed to properly understand our religion and understand Quran is to distinguish between the verses that are foundational meaning they state a principle. That principle is timeless. It applies at all times and all places. La ikraha fi din. There is no compulsion in religion. This is not contextual verse. That's principle. And between the verses that were revealed to help the prophetic community deal with their reality, and it has some answers to the questions that were addressed at that time. يسألونك, they ask you, tell them this, because they were in a constant debate with the mushrikeen, the disbelievers, and even with the Jews in Medina. There was a constant debate and challenges, and Quran was revealed to answer those questions. Plus, also there are problems. There are problems that were faced by that society, and Quran was revealed to give some solutions. You cannot tell them that these are principles and you need to figure out how to apply them, or these are, the Quran is meant to be for all times and all places, so it's not going to focus on your problems. You can't. So there were solutions. There were solutions for the slavery problem. There were solutions for all problems that were. So there were the key here, which Muslims did not do, and they are not even trying to do. And some people may be offended or consider even this kufr if you tell them that verses of Quran are two categories. There are timeless verses. We need to be able, I mean, it's not easy to distinguish which is which, because there is some gray area. There are some verses that you cannot tell for sure, and that's where ijtihad is needed. You cannot tell for sure, is this foundational or contextual? There are some verses clearly foundational, like the one I mentioned. There are some verses that are clearly contextuals. All the verses about qital and fighting, they are contextuals, because qital or fighting is not a principle in Islam. You can be very good Muslim and you die as very good Muslim and you go to the Firdaus, even though you never fought. You never was. So it's not a principle. It is something that is needed under certain conditions. So it becomes contextuals. Anything that is needed only under certain conditions, it becomes contextuals. But there are some verses that are not clear. I mean, the verses of hudud, for example, some people, the verse of Mirath, are they contextuals or foundations? We cannot tell for sure, because there are arguments for both sides. You can say that, for example, the inheritance, the way it is distributed, it is clear-cut verse in Quran. يُوصِيكُمُ اللَّهُ فِي أَوْلَادِكُمْ لِلذَّكَرِ مِثْلُ حَظِّ الْأُنثَيَيْنِ. Now, are we living the same conditions now? Very different conditions in terms of the role of women, in terms of the participation of women in the expenses of houses, etc. Very different. Is it still that verse still achieve the purpose of justice and fairness in Islam or not? That has to be debated and discussed. Cutting the hands of thieves. السارق والسارقة فاقطعوا أيديهما. It was practiced even before Islam. And then, was this a foundational verse that we cannot even touch? Or do we consider that at that time, this idea of placing people in prison, in jail, and spending or having a whole budget for a whole building dedicated for a jail, and then spending and taking care of the needs of these prisoners, etc., was not even on the table. People, they're barely surviving. I mean, the house, the rooms of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in Medina were very primitive. What jail is going to be built? I mean, the masjid itself was very primitive. It used to be like sand and very primitive mosque. I mean, what kind of jail is going to be built and be placing people there and feed them and take care of them? And so, was this something? I know these things are very controversial. I mean, people don't want to touch them. But I always believe, I firmly believe, that Umar ibn al-Khattab and Abu Bakr Siddiq, they made ijtihad in something that there was text about it. And they figured out that the maslaha, the best interest of people and the greater good or the justice is not, that particular verse does not serve, applying it literally, does not serve justice and does not serve the maqasid of Islam, or the purpose, or the ultimate purpose of this deen. So they made ijtihad. Some people, they reject this. That's up to them. But Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu fought the people who refused to pay zakat and against a text in Quran, against a text in Hadith. And the Sahaba told him that you are violating a Hadith, and he went on. He did not stop. And Umar al-Khattab made ijtihad in things that were clear-cut in Quran, in text mentioned. 2 or 3 cases. مؤلفة قلوبهم, he stopped it, even though there is a verse and something that was practiced by the Prophet ﷺ and by Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. And then the distribution of the spoils of war, 80% of this ghanaim was distributed among soldiers. He stopped that practice. These are things. So unless one day people acknowledge that reality and start to really use their minds, let's figure out, let's try. We will never be for sure. We will never be sure about what is the purpose of Allah. We can only try, but let us try to see. And if the text does not achieve the purpose, or if the maslaha and the nas, the text and the greater good, they come in conflict, which one takes precedent? By the way, there are some mainstream scholars who dare, because the Salafi trend is very intimidating, and anybody who dare to say something like this, they be labeled kafir. But there are some mainstream scholars who said that إذا تعارض النص مع المصلحة تقدم المصلحة. That's somebody like Muhammad Aymara. Before he died, he was very strong about it, that when the text and the greater good, or the maqsad, or the purpose of Islam, they disagree or they come in conflict, the maslaha or the greater good takes precedent, which was very, very brave to say that. There are a number of things that used to be taboo, nobody can touch them. And some scholars, Yusuf al-Qardawi, rahimahullah, said, there is no jihad talab. There is no such thing as you go out and fight people. And that the Prophet was never involved in jihad talab. That's in his book, Jihad in Islam, Jihad fil Islam, which was one of his latest books. But it takes a lot of courage to say that, because we have all the books of Sirah, the Ghazawat. The Prophet spent all his life fighting people, and then somebody comes and say there is no such thing, that the Prophet never attacked people without being provoked, or without, it was all in retaliation or in self-defense. So we had some attempts here and there to challenge the status quo, because the status quo is so prevalent and so dominant that nobody dares. By the way, it's not only in religion, even in politics. Unfortunately, we live at a time where there is only one voice that imposes itself, and nobody dares to question that or to challenge it. Even in politics, things are framed right away. They are framed in a certain way, and then you can't even challenge that. Every incident, by the way, from Morocco to Indonesia, anything that happens in the Muslim world, it is immediately framed in a certain way. If it is framed as a victory, you cannot say otherwise. It's a victory. If it is framed as liberation, tahrir, it is tahrir. Nasr, nasr. And you can only repeat what is being said. If you dare even to ask questions, you will find yourself attacked left and right. In a religion, it's even worse. In a religion, if you say ijtihad ma'an nas, that there is a room for ijtihad, even if there is a text, I don't know what you're going to be called by everybody, by the way. Even average Muslim who is not practicing, they, in their mind, it's they subscribe to the Salafi understanding, and they will tell you that you are out of your mind. There is no such thing. لا اجتهاد مع النص. And that kills ijtihad. So what they're gonna do, what ijtihad you're gonna do if there is no ijtihad in the text? So basically, you are basically saying there is no room for ijtihad, and that's totally wrong. So back to your questions, Quran was designed to be book of guidance, reminders, dhikr, maw'ida, dhikra, tadhkira. That's how it is called. It calls itself Quran. Nadi tadhkira. It's always meant to be reminder, admonition, meant to purify your heart, strengthen your iman, strengthen your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, increase the presence of Allah in your life, strengthen your belief in the day of judgment, because there are a lot of temptations in life that distract us from that. We forget about death, we forget about the day of judgment, and here we go, when we go to the Quran, we are reminded of those things. So it is meant to work on all these things at the same time. That's why in the same page, in the same passage, you find different concepts: Tawheed, Qiyamah, Akhlaq, etc.
Thank you very much.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum
Yes.
assalam.
Can I ask a question? I'm so sorry I came late. I totally forgot about the class. And the question I had, you were just talking about ijtihad. Then why does the Quran say to do tadabbur on Quran, which is critical thinking, I would think, you know? So if Quran wants the main purpose, our part of, you know, when we want to get guidance from Quran, we have to do our part, and our part is to do tadabbur and understand Quran deeply. So isn't that ijtihad? I mean, translates into finally into ijtihad. You know, if we do tadabbur, I mean, I think that was the point of Quran telling us to do tadabbur on.
That's exactly what is meant, and that's what we missed. It's كتاب أنزلناه إليك ليدبروا آياته وليتذكر أولو الألباب. So it is meant for people to be reminded, but to reflect. Now, what is reflection here, or contemplation? Is asking the question, what is it that Allah wants me to do here, or wants to tell me here? That question is not obvious. Quran, there is a text that you read, there is a message that you need to extract, and that message requires effort and requires you that you ask yourself this question all the time. What is it? What it's, you know, it's like reading a letter from someone and you're not sure about what do they want with this sentence, what they want to tell me. So when you read Quran, that's what you should be asking yourself all the time. That's tadabbur. And that leads eventually to ijtihad. Because if I keep asking myself why this verse was revealed, what's the purpose of it? Is it a contextual verse? Is it foundational verse? That's tadabbur. That's the intellectual exercise. So it can be done by average Muslim, but it needs to be done by scholars in order to issue fatwa or determine the rule of Islam, how we can take that verse and implement it in our reality. Because there are some verses that are related to you as individual, personal. These are things that you can do tadabbur yourself. But there are verses in which there is hukum. Like the one we mentioned, hudud, mirath. This is hukum. This is where ijtihad, the academic or the scholarly ijtihad is meant to be, meant to focus on ahkam, which verses we believe were revealed to solve the problems that were faced by the prophetic community, and which verses are meant to be applied at all times. And that's not an easy exercise, but the solution is not to avoid it. Solution is to have the courage to do it, and we always are guaranteed, if we make the right ijtihad, we have double ajr, double reward. If we make the wrong ijtihad, we have one reward. This is a religion that guarantees a reward for someone who make ijtihad, even if they end up with the wrong ijtihad, as long as they have the pure intention. Critical thinking in Islam Muslims, if we understand our religion properly, we should be the pioneers in this world in critical thinking, because this religion emphasizes critical thinking beyond imagination. I mentioned the examples before. One, the Prophet ﷺ used to consult and explain and argue, mention the arguments, the reason why he chose this opinion or this course of action. Prophets consults. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ibrahim alayhi salam, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he exercised critical thinking. With Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said, قال ربي أرني كيف قال إبراهيم ربي أرني كيف تحيي الموتى. Show me how you bring the dead to life. قال ولم تؤمن. Do you still have a doubt? You don't believe? قال لا بلى ولكن ليطمئن قلبي. I just want to be more comfortable. And Quran mentioned in a way that is not, it was not condemned. It's actually praising Ibrahim alayhi salam. So Ibrahim alayhi salam asking Allah, did not take, with Allah he said, show me how you do it. Show me. And nowadays you have people who are dealing with their leaders or their imam or scholars or teacher, كالميت بين يدي غاسله, like the dead person in the hands of the person who is washing him. Basically, no question asked. Take everything for granted. That's totally wrong. People did not do it with the Prophet. We have seen it that Ibrahim alayhi salam did not do it with Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all the verses in which he tells us do and don't do, he explains. Why he explains? Why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains, even though he doesn't have to. لا يسأل عما يفعل. Why Allah explains? To train us to ask why. So because we cannot have that conversation with Allah, Quran was revealed explaining the why that we are supposed to ask. Alcohol is forbidden, you should be asking why. And Quran itself will explain to you why. Khamr and Maysir, why they were forbidden. So Quran is teaching us in several ways to ask why. Why is critical thinking? Asking the why. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had conversation with Shaitan. And this was mentioned in several places in Quran. قال ما منعك ألا تسجد إذ أمرتك أن تسجد لما خلقت بيدي استكبرت. Why? Allah is asking Iblis, why you did not obey me, or did not make sujood to Adam like other angels. And then Iblis was arguing. All of these are teachings for us, meant to teach us that Muslim mind should be critical mind and should be always looking for truth and always don't take anything for granted. And also Quran condemns those who take things for granted. Those who say, Inna wajadna aba'ana ala ummah, that this is the way we found our parents doing things or worshipping, and we just want to follow them. فلما جاءتهم رسلنا بالبينات فرحوا بما عندهم من العلم. Their messenger came to them with the signs. They say, no. What we have is enough. We don't want to think. So Quran mentioned that attitude in a negative way. And nowadays it is practiced by the majority of Muslims. They don't question leaders, they don't question imams, they don't question scholars, they don't question anything. They take things for granted. They take things for granted from the media and from social media. They don't even question. They get information from media, playing with their minds and framing issues for them, and they take it for granted. So I mentioned this several times. In many ways, we are following exactly the opposite of the teachings of Islam. Whatever Islam told us to do, we are doing exactly the opposite. It's very unfortunate. And this is one area, which is tadabbur and critical thinking, and trying to find the reason for everything, and not take anything for granted, whether it is from a teacher in a school, whether from a imam in a masjid, whether from a leader in a party, whether it does always. Why and why not?
Actually, Dr. Ganucci, I was thinking, that even taqwa, the definition of taqwa also coincides with, overlaps with that of, tadabbur. Like, what is taqwa? You have to be extremely vigilant, right? So, like you said,
Yes,
you have to be always critically thinking in every
yes.
vigilance. I think so. Yeah.
By the way, taqwa, subhanallah, if you read the Quran, every time you read the Quran, you find something as if you read it for the first time. Recently, it drew my attention something that Quran mentions the taqwa as a process. It's something that you work on. الذين آمنوا وكانوا يتقون. It's not like it's not one-time deal. It's not one-time decision. It's a process that you work on. They accepted faith and then they are working on their taqwa. الذين آمنوا وكانوا يتقون. So it's not it's something that you keep increasing and optimizing and strengthening. And that also can happen only basically we go back to that balanced life. It requires the balance between the physical, the spiritual, and the intellectual. You want to live a balanced life, take care of your body in terms of diet and exercise, take care of your spirit in terms of spiritual development, qiyam, Quran, dhikr, salah, etc., and take care of your mind, learning and tadabbur, reflecting and contemplating, and debating, arguing in a nice way, in a positive way. Unfortunately, not many people live that balanced life. If you check how much people put, how much energy and time and money they put in the physical needs, and compare it to their spiritual and their intellectual, you will find lack of balance. Very little effort is very little time and effort is put on the intellectual, reading, learning, thinking, contemplating, etc. And not much also effort is done on the spiritual, except routine ibadat or rituals, but now not spiritual development. Spiritual development, it's like physical development. In order to develop physicalities, you need to exercise. And spiritual development also, you need to exercise to develop yourself spiritually. And also intellectual development needs also exercise, need that learning and reflection and contemplation.
Thank you. Jazakallah kulla khair.
وإياكم إن شاء الله.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Ghannouchi.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Dr. Ghannouchi, there are a lot of so I've been listening throughout and we're all of the mindset that we have to do critical thinking, and there are ayat that are verses that are foundational, and then there are some that are circumstantial. Now, there's a big push for the current, I guess, understanding of Islam, or the Salafi, the approach, and they're always like, I'm on different groups on WhatsApp, and they're always offering these lectures, and it seems, and this training session for 3 weeks, 9 weeks, 6 weeks, and they offer them for free. So there's this big push, and I'm really concerned that if we continue in that cycle, new or younger Muslims getting trained in that mindset or that understanding of Islam, that we're gonna remain stagnant, and there were it's gonna be harder to basically get to the true get enough Muslims to understand the objectives of Islam, or understand it the way it should be understood. It just seems one generation after another, they're indoctrinated into the way of thinking. And so how do we undo that? How do we
It's very hard. It's extremely hard. The Salafi understanding of Islam is very dominant. And when I say Salafi, it doesn't mean that only the Salafi Jama'ah. 99% maybe of Muslims are Salafi, even if they don't know it, even if they reject that, even those who are fighting the political Islam and the Salafi Islam, they are Salafi. For very, very simple reason. It's the one that lasted for centuries. So it took roots in the minds and the psyche of Muslims, as you mentioned, from one generation to another. It is also supported by governments. In Muslim countries, we have a chronic fight or struggle for power between the Islamic groups and the governments. But both of them, together, they promote the Salafi understanding. So there is a huge, very strong force behind it, and a lot of money behind it. And it suits the governments and the regimes. The Salafi understanding, you can see in Egypt, they're opening for them all opportunities to work because they don't pose any challenge for them. By the way, even Ikhwan are Salafis. Everybody is Salafi. Everybody who accept that the version of Islam that we inherited is the right one, and there is no room for ijtihad, and whatever the scholars came up with, the madahib is good enough, and that's the deen. And everybody who defines the deen as rituals and appearances and madahir and sha'air and personal fiqh and halal and haram, does not say anything about mission, does not say anything about maqasid, etc. Anybody who take that route is basically Salafi. Anybody who will tell you that all hadith in Bukhari and Muslim, etc., is authentic hadith, is also Salafi. Even if it contradicts a verse of Quran, it's so dominant, and it has that ability to regenerate itself. It has that ability to regenerate itself. So it was. Just give me a second, please. So we had that original, very traditional. They say the same soup, different bowl. That's what has been happening. So from the Azhar and the people who are very traditionalist, even in the way they dress, etc. And then we had it came back in the Muslim world in the form of the new du'at or du'at al-judud, young people, they dress in modern way, but then they speak language that is lighter than the heavier, but the product is the same. And then here we have the same thing. Those Maghrib and Yaqeen and Yasir Qadi and all of the, it's the same, very same product. It is just packaged differently. But everybody is going back to the same books of Turath and basically recycle them and deliver them in a different, deliver them in eloquent English, no accent. And it looks, on the surface, it looks different, but the product is, it's a very same product that has been recycled over the centuries and over the last decades. And then even those Islamic groups that you see them different, they differ in tactics, they different in operation, but they don't different in ideology. The ideology is the same. So almost all Islamic groups, from the Tablighi to Ikhwan to all of them, all Islamic groups, they have the same ideology. They different in terms of priority, how the dose of politics in their work and in their activities, the way maybe they organize themselves, etc. But the ideology, it's the same. Same books, same ideology. So to answer your question, it's an uphill battle, because the only product that is on the market is the Salafi product. And it's when you have a dominance like this, it's going to be very hard to introduce another product. That's why, especially that, as I said, there is money behind it and there is political support. Governments, they like the Salafi understanding because it encourages passiveness, it encourages isolation, it encourages disengagement, political disengagement, or and even when these groups divide among each other, they actually help governments, because divide and conquer. The more you can divide them. So at the end of the day, it's very important to say that from the Islamic groups to the average practicing Muslim to the average non-practicing Muslims, their understanding of Islam is the same. It's a Salafi understanding. And that's why we're going nowhere. As you mentioned, you said, if we're going to continue this way, we're going to remain stagnant, because the Salafi understanding of Islam is a very effective recipe for stagnation. It guarantees stagnation because it freezes the mind, and without new ideas, there is no change.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Suhail.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
So my question is, like, looking at it, we see and we value the deep conversation that we get here and that critical thinking, that to realize the roots of all this stagnation that we are encountering in us, and how to work on our self-development and being role model and all this. And this is really important and critical for ourselves and our generation, inshallah. Maybe I'm just wondering, like, maybe beyond this, what else can be done? Like, maybe, as time is moving and we never know, do we really have tomorrow? So before that comes, maybe what solution should we think of or come up with, like something as simple as a curriculum? Maybe, like we said, sometimes it's even hard to find the right approach or the right resources, or when you look at even the leaders that we have, those are the ones that the Salafis are the prominent here. The voices are more higher. So that's where we tend to think that's how we can find out like the path. So, and obviously it's runs down to our generation. So like voices like this are very minimal. So what can we do beyond this?
I mean, there is no easy answer to this, but until something happen at a larger scale, everyone is responsible for themselves and for their immediate circle. You just do your best to discover your religion, to learn more about it, to be the Muslim that whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to be, to understand your mission in life, to fulfill it to the best of your ability, to have positive impact on the people around you, starting with your immediate family, and then to the larger circle, etc., and to maximize your positive impact on your circle and on your environment, whatever your environment you are in. It's a neighborhood, it's workplace, it's a Muslim community, it's the city, it's a state. Whatever you can do to make this world a better place so that you can really have a record to show. When an employee get appraisal or they do an assessment, you need to show what did you achieve in your annual report. What did you achieve? And we have a live report that we're going to submit to Allah. You need to put as much as possible of achievements there. This is what I did for the community. This is what I did in the neighborhood. This is what I did in my family. This is what I have done. That's all what I could do. This is the point is to reach a point where you can tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I did everything I can. I did everything I can to be the best version of myself. I worked on my akhlaq, manners, I worked on my worship, I worked on my spirituality, I worked on my knowledge, etc., to be the best version of myself. I tried my best to raise the best family I can. And whatever I had to contribute, I did. I always learn and teach or share wisdom and information. And I always, whenever I have time, I volunteer my time, I share my resources, etc., in order to make this world a better place. That's at the individual level until there is something collective that can happen. And I keep saying that you never know. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will one day make it possible for this message to reach the masses. And I know it will be fought fiercely by the status quo because people are benefiting from the status quo and it is very convenient and comfortable. And everybody who, throughout history, anybody who dared to challenge the status quo, they met with the fierce resistance and attacks. But if the opportunity comes, we have to do what we have to do. Muslims have to accept the sad reality that they inherited a very defective version of Islam. It is a version that went through centuries of stagnation and dictatorship and oppression, and therefore it was mutilated. People are deceived because on the appearance, it looks like it is intact. We still fast Ramadan and worship, pray 5 times. So you can say that things are okay. No, they're not. The product, the results, the outcome tells you that we are not. It's not. So until Muslims accept that and they start trying to make up for those lost centuries and go back to that true, original, inspiring, empowering Islam and embrace it and embrace it as a life mission with minds that are free, that are critical, that are objective, that have no limit for their ambition. Until we do that, unfortunately, we're going to remain in the situation that you see. People have limited aspirations. People have crippled minds, frozen religion. It's not producing anything. And even when we see sometimes an appearance of change, like revolution, etc., we end up disappointed because it doesn't tackle the root causes of the problem, and it's going to be patchwork and superficial and painkiller, and then we wake up and discover that nothing has changed.
Dr.
جزاك
Ghannouchi,
الله كل خير دكتور سهيل.
one thing.
Sorry, you are out of the time. You know, it's.
Okay, inshallah.
Yeah, I just want to introduce one point, and we can discuss it next time, inshallah.
Sure. Sure.
Dr. Ghannouchi, I came across this talk that Dr. Jeffrey Sachs did in Turkey. He was there for a conference almost 7 days ago, and he talked about I guess it was a secret at that time, work by the CIA to basically have the Arab Spring. Basically.
Yeah, I heard about it. We need to read it and inshallah discuss it next time.
Yeah. One thing though with that, Dr. Ghannouchi, yes, what we need, right, is to have a group that can probably foresee these things coming and to maybe direct, the ummah, right, whether it's in Egypt or Syria. Hey, do you really want to participate in this? Because I think the Salafi. The reason I brought the Salafi group earlier is because they're so emotional and they just don't. The current version of Islam makes us so emotional, and we just react without thinking, without knowing. Okay, what is the end goal? What is so everybody reacted very emotionally in Egypt, in Syria, here or there, and without thinking about, okay, what are we doing? And is this good? Are we being manipulated? Are we being played? And, looking at the aftermath, we have a worse government, than we did, in Egypt than before the Arab Spring. The Syria situation is worse. So
No, it's
I'm
not
thinking,
worse. He put bunch of light, this Jeffrey Sachs. And do you believe him? Do you believe what he said?
No. Yeah. That's why I said we need to discuss it, because there are a lot of controversy about what he said. But
I mean, if it conflicts,
we don't need him, Asma. We don't need Jeffrey Sachs. We don't need anybody. We can understand. We can understand what happened and why without Jeffrey Sachs. Anybody who apply the rules and don't allow themselves to be deceived by the news, you can figure out what happened in the Arab Spring or before and after, and you can see what is spontaneous, what was instigated, etc., and how politics are done. Unfortunately, majority of people, they follow the news and they base their understanding on the news, and the news is very, very deceiving. So let's come back. That's a very big issue about understanding politics versus just being deceived by the media and the news.
Yeah, Dr. Ghannouchi, one last thing. Hold on, brother Abu Abdullah. What I'm trying to get at is, okay, if there is, in the future, if there is a chess game, right? If people are gonna make moves, against, say, Muslims in Egypt, Syria, or whatever, we need to be active players in this chess game and not passive. I think
that's why I said that's a big issue.
In Egypt,
how
to be
active in countries that are not independent. How to be proactive and how to be impactful and influential in governments who do not, in countries where they are not even independent. So let's come back to that, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair. See you Sunday. Please, guys, come at noon, okay? Please. Thank you.